Turbo Tim here, going on video number 2. So, refresher. This is our new 14 old beat up white Cruze, automatic. In the first video, we did stock versus tuned. Now we're doing a video on tuned versus Z04 install. This car has no other mods. Stock intake, stock valve springs, stock, like pretty much everything. The Z04 does require a down pipe and mid pipe, but that's it. Let's see how it does. All right, results are in. Z04 turbo on a otherwise 100% stock car versus the stock tune. We gave up some spool, obviously, due to the stock turbo being a lot smaller. So you'll see that here. The 1.0 tune, you get the big torque spike, but the stock tune doesn't give you a torque spike. So you just have your torque, it just comes up here, rounds over a little over 140 foot-pounds, tapers off to about 105. The Z04 turbo, it is working on the spool. It's full spool here, and you're sitting around 170 at full spool with a peak of 173 foot-pounds, and it tapers off to around 126. And then we have, let's say, a stock peak horsepower of 126 wheel horsepower on the stock turbo, but this is at like probably 5,600 RPM, to where at your shift point, you are down to like 119 wheel horsepower versus our Z04, which is a peak of about 160 wheel horsepower. What's great about this turbo is you gain more RPM. So you want horsepower. Horsepower is at high RPM. This turbo is going to carry out 1,000 RPM or more over the stock turbo. And that allows you to shift a stock valve spring car at, darn near 7,000 RPM. We'll probably put valve springs on the car just to see what it does, and obviously more mods. But as of right now, this thing is super happy. The stock tune, or even the 1.0 file, it had knock. Even on our Michigan 93, which is known to be pretty good fuel, it had knock. It wasn't happy because the stock turbo is it's such a choke point. It holds in a ton of heat, it has back pressure. The Z04 goes on and it's a tuner's dream. KR is gone. I mean, I'm running a 12:1 air fuel ratio. It's actually a little more aggressive than that on the hit. It starts at like 12.3 and tapers down to 12.1 because they're on the stock injectors yet. Now this dyno sheet is comparing the ZZP 100% stock car with tune versus the pretty much 100% stock car, but with a Z04 on it. Still stock injectors. So the stock turbo and tune allows me to spike the boost up to 179 foot-pounds at the wheels. And then at probably around mid fives, we got a peak horsepower of 144. But notice the power falls off. That stock turbo, it just chokes off, power dies off, where the Z04 carries out. So out here at the end of the dyno pole, the tune car is making like 123 wheel horsepower, where the Z04 turbo is making 160. Also, one thing I want to point out is notice the stock boost is higher than the Z04. So the Z04 is actually making less boost than the stock turbo and yet making more power. everywhere where it actually is making boost. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put a set of 60s on it, because I don't think 42s are enough, because we do wanna run this car on flex fuel at some point. Final numbers, 187 wheel horsepower and 192 foot-pounds of torque. This dyno sheet shows the difference between the Z04 with stock injectors versus the Z04 with 60s. Basically, common sense says I was able to turn the boost up. So we went from about 18 pounds, 18.8 pounds to about 22.5 pounds of boost. Also, I'm not maxing the injectors anymore. The injector duty cycle was like 100%. I'm sure I'm gonna get flamed for that, but it was for a dyno pull just to see how far they would go. When you run injectors at 100% or even close to that, the spray pattern is messy. It's just garden hosing the intake valve. Now that we have 60s and it's at like 40% injector duty cycle, you're actually getting a flow, clean path of fuel into the cylinders at the right time like it's supposed to. And then, the great part about that is that I'm able to turn the boost up and make more power. This is comparing a stock car, stock injectors, to a Z04 and 60s. That is absolutely it. The Z04 turbo kit does come with a downpipe and midpipe. So technically it's a turbo and a downpipe and a midpipe. But this car is all stock otherwise. Stock catback, stock airbox, stock intake manifold. The car's got 117,000 miles on it. It's on our standard pump 93. Nothing special there. The Z04, I got it up to 22.5 pounds of boost, where it started to get a little bit of knock at at about 6,800 RPM. So I just decided that's it. It just needs more mods. Intercooler, cold air box, ported intake manifold. Obviously, the walls in the stock intake, I'm sure, are hurting us. But yeah, so the car's ready for more mods. That's it.